Good morning and happy Tuesday to everybody. Welcome to this session of the Builder's Best Practices call. For context, we have these on the first and third Tuesdays of every month, and they're designed for those agents here at eXp that would like to grow and build an organization. Um, we are missing Casey today, so everybody send her best wishes. She's a little under the weather right now. So you're stuck with me. I'm very excited about this one though. When I looked at our chart, I was like, "Ooh, it's Curtis." So I'm like, if I get to pick, I love being able to pick that I get to interview him today. So just want to do a brief introduction biography of Curtis Johnson, who will be speaking with us today on the call. Curtis has built the sixth largest real estate network inside of eXp out of over 80,000 agents. That was why I was so excited. I was like, this is kind of incredible. He's built over 10,000 agents, which is my ultimate goal for mine. So I was like, oh, I feel like the universe was just making this happen today, that it was me. He is one of the few actual billion-dollar agents in North America. He has a very large real estate team and has successfully built that over the years. He's an eight-time eXp Icon Award winner, which if you don't know what that is, you can ask me later or put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to explain what an Icon Award winner is and how incredible it is that he's done it 8 times. He and his team have sold over 7,000 residential homes, which is pretty amazing. And those are just the highlights. So we'll kind of dig in a little bit more as we go in there because the bio was quite long. I was like, wow, this guy has really been out there doing some amazing stuff over the years. So very excited to jump
I
in
think it
today.
just really means I'm old. I think that's really what it means.
You sound like me. I was at a closing yesterday and the title agent says, "Well, how long have you been doing this, Selena?" I'm like, "Since the dawn of time."
There
Um,
you go.
this was my
Yeah.
30th year. So I was like, that's all I've ever done is real estate. So it's pretty exciting. So
Yes.
welcome, Curtis. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here. I obviously, anytime Casey asks for anything, happy to help. And she's one of, obviously, you guys know you guys spent a lot of time with her. She's one of the most incredible people. Obviously, Rick was just incredible powerhouse. And anything I can do, to kind of try to give back a little bit of the light that they've shared freely to everybody else, happy to help if I can.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, well, we're going to just jump into the very beginning. Take us all the way back to the beginning. You joined EXP back in January of 2018. What made you decide on this model when most people hadn't heard about it at that time, or what little they knew about it? There wasn't a lot out there. What
Right.
did you see that others did not?
I wish I could say I saw it right from the beginning, but I didn't. I think at that point I'd been in the business almost 20 years and tried to solve almost every problem everybody else did. And kind of going back originally, I got my license in like 98. And the first year I was hustling, I sold like 10 houses and I was broke. I think I made like 22 or $24,000 kind of spent almost all of it back into marketing to kind of keep going. Everybody was telling me how great I was doing. And I was like, this is horrible. This is, how can you, there's no time left. How can you do anything? And then I knew that there was people that were selling, you know, 10 times what I was doing. I knew they couldn't work 10 times harder. So I knew that it wasn't just a hustle issue, that I just knew I needed to learn something that they knew that I didn't know. And so then I just spent the next, few years traveling the country, learning from every coach I could find, going to every seminar, going to everything until I learned a lot of things I could take back to my team. We started doing really well, sold over 100 houses, all those things. And then over the next, 15, 20 years, just trying to solve the same problems everybody else was doing, right? And I would go to these masterminds and we'd come up with these great ideas and then we'd come back to, I'd come back to Arizona and implement them and stuff like that. And I was like, this is just so inefficient the way that everything is. We're working on stuff, but then we're all running our own individual businesses. And with a lot of top agents, we're like, well, maybe what if we all just kind of pooled together? And we're like, well, would we create a company? Would we take over a company? What could you do? But I'm like, it's just so inefficient that we go and we study all these listing presentations or buyer presentations or funnels and everything. And then we all go back to our individual markets and we all start back over again. And I'm like, it's completely inefficient. So, anyways, that's kind of like a little bit of a backstory. And then in I think 2016, Brent Gove reached out to me, and I obviously spent a lot of time with Brent in a lot of different masterminds and seminars, and we spoke together at different places. And how can you not love Brent? He's just an incredible person, and we just a major impact on my life. And he reached out, and he's like, "Hey, have you heard of this company called EXP Realty?" And I'm like, no, I haven't. And I'm like, it sounds like a terrible name. And he's like, well, let me tell. He's like, well, you at least listen. I knew he was doing really big stuff at KW, but I knew he probably wasn't going to stay there forever. And he's like, I'm really looking at this company. I think I might join it. And I was like, really? And he goes, I'm heading out to. I think he was going to go to Texas or Florida. I can't remember, one of those two. And he was going to go check it out. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. And so he went and he's like, will you at least look at it? And I said, out of respect to you, because of how much you've given me, I'll look at anything. I go, but just be honest, there's 0% chance I'm ever joining in. I'm just, even if I wanted to, I was in the middle of some other business stuff. I said, you could be handing me gold bricks and I'd have to say no. So just to understand, he goes, well, at least look at it. And I said, sure, I'll look at it. And he had me on with Rob Flick, and they told me all about it. And honestly, I think I was like kind of listening. It was on the phone, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I really get it or not. And a lot of things I heard in my mind were, recruiting and doing all this. And I knew I was not a great recruiter. And when he got done, they're like, what do you think? And I said, you know what? I go, if you guys can get Brent Gove to come over, your company will fundamentally change, and it will be the best thing you guys have ever done for the company. I said, but I've got zero interest in this. I'm never coming. Just, but you guys take Brent and just do incredible things. You're going to change the world. And I said, hey, that's great. I said no. And Brent just kept in touch, every few weeks. Like, he's just a great person. We kept in touch anyways, and he kept in touch. Um, like maybe every couple weeks to maybe every month, and he'd just be, "How's your family doing? How's this?" And I'd be like, "I'm doing good." I go, "How's that EXP thing working out?" And I go, "Are you making any money?" And all that stuff. And it started out making 5,000, and it was 10,000, and it was 15, and then it was 20. And I was like, Wait a second, 20, there's no way, because I had owned a little bit of a Keller Williams Market Center way back in the day, and I knew the person was one of the biggest players in the industry. And I knew after, I don't know, 20 years of doing it and millions of dollars invested, he was maybe making 20 grand a month. And so I was like, how are you doing that within like 6 months or what? I was just like, what is this? And so we would talk again. And I remember one time we talked for like 3 or 4 hours. Like, he was on this drive and we talked. And I asked him every question, because I was like trying to talk. I was looking for every reason to not join, but I was at some pain points in my business where, running a big team, you bring agents on and you train them up, and then after a year or two, they think they've learned it all and they go and they're your competitors. And I said, this doesn't feel like a good business divorce all the time, and I don't like that. And I go, what is it? At the time, it looked like EXP's turnover, almost every company out there was about 38 to 40% annually. So if a company had 100 people, that means 40 of them were turning over every year, just across the industry. And EXP's was lower than that. And I said, hey, what is it? Is it the stock? Is it this? Is it the environment? What are the different things? And so that's really what I was looking at. Honestly, I was pretty clear about it. I was like, I want to figure out what it is so I can knock it off in my business. I don't want to join EXP. I want to just
Replicate.
knock off the hubcaps and keep it and do all that. And so I was trying to figure out what I could take selfishly to put into my business that would solve it. And then I was just going through and going through. And then just one day I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're such an idiot. You've just spent a year looking at this thing out of your ego, instead of trying to take the hubcaps and the dice off the mirror. Why not just join? And and I was looking at it like, when Brent joined, I think there was like 2,000 people. When I eventually joined, like a little over a year, it was like 6,000 people. But I couldn't get over the fact that I really dove into it and I broke the model apart, and I was like, this thing is incredible. I couldn't believe that from an ego standpoint, I was like, how did I never see anything like this? I'd never even considered building something like this. So that was kind of one of the hard things is that I was like, how did someone come up with this? I'd never heard of this. And then the next thing was, I was like, if this is as good as what I think it is, why isn't every great agent over here? Because at the time, there really wasn't a lot of super powerful teams, and I couldn't get past that. I was like, well, why is everybody else at other companies if this is as good as what I think it is? And then once I kind of put my ego to the side, I realized, you know what, this is the best opportunity in the history of the world because this is just a blank slate. And if you come over with a beginner's mind and you come and you build on this platform, you could really build anything. And that's really the way that Glenn designed it is to come over, bring everything that you've got, and then you attract people that are in your tribe, and then you can do anything. So I know that's a long story, but that's really what it was. So when I came over in January of 2018, I had a team of 20 people at the time, and I was like, man, I'm going to lose everybody. I had my own brokerage before that. I had really, the splits. I was like, this is going to cost me a lot more money to come over here, and I'm going to lose everybody. And I had gone through it, and I figured out I was going to lose everybody but two agents. And so, and Brent's like, here's the deal, dude. You need to figure out this is the best thing, and if this is the best thing, then you need to come over, even if you lose everybody. And that took me like another month or two to process that and to kind of go, man, I don't know. And then when I realized, you know what, this is the best thing for me, but this is the best thing for everybody on my team as well. And I'm going to do the right thing. And I hope they come, but I was ready to go even if nobody came. I kind of figured I was going to end up with like two agents at the end. 18 of them came over. One more of them came over about a year later of that, and the other one wanted to come, but I was befuddled why they wanted to come because I was trying to fire them for like a year or two before that. So really, almost everybody came, and then really kind of just started building from there. Had some good wins, and kind of off to the races with that.
Wow. And I love that Scott put in the notes what I wrote it down in my paper too. Scott, he was like, I'm not a great recruiter. And I'm like, 10,000 agents later. You know? So what I'm
Yeah,
taking away from what you said was how much we tell ourselves a story. You know,
100%.
we've created all of that in our mind, even though we're hearing amazing things, why it won't work for us, why it won't work for our team, whatever that is, right? We've all created that. And potentially how much time is lost inside the story, right?
Yeah,
Inside the story. And I think we've all probably experienced that if you've done any agent attraction already, where we have that same conversation with other people. I have somebody
yeah,
in mind that it was a full 2 years, and now when he looks back at it, he's like, "Why didn't I do this sooner?" And I'm like, "I tried to tell you, but you weren't ready to listen. You were still in the
sure.
story." Like, and when it's your time, it's your time. The other thing that I really loved, and you touched on it very briefly, that I don't think enough people think about is that, and I've been a team leader for many years, is that act of bringing agents into our team and then that fear that they're going to leave us because we've seen it happen and they did leave us, and that
Hmm.
that relationship shifted and changed and they were no longer a part of us. And now
Yeah,
EXP was built with the idea that people come into the team, they learn, they train, they become great, but they stay with us in another sense, and what that can look like over the long term and staying in relationship with people as a result of
yeah,
that. So first of all, pretty incredible story about how you got here and even how long it took, right? Even how long
yeah,
it took. So something I want to talk about as well is like most people build a wildly successful team and that's enough, right? Exactly what you said.
uh-huh.
But you saw, oh, let me just mute. I'm hearing noises, so let me do that. Um, and then obviously at some point you decided to start building and creating through the organization. Tell me, was it just what you saw with bringing the team in and what was possible, or was there an impetus to you deciding to do agent attraction at a bigger level?
Probably both. I mean, I think that there's a natural thing once you get into real estate that, there's this cycle every few years of, yeah, to me, yeah, I'm high D, high I want a new challenge. I want something, I wanted a new mountain to climb. And, once you've sold a house here, there, different things, okay, you're like, what's next? And I think the natural process inside of real estate is once we sell a bunch and we kind of learn a lot of stuff, most people in the industry I found are just great people, are really, they're givers and they want to do stuff. Obviously, we understand the difference when we start working with buyers that they take 20 hours, 25 hours to work with the buyer. And we know that there's a leverage point once you go to listings that it might take 6, 8, 10 hours of total time. And you can be with your family on a weekend or doing whatever, and other people are showing your property. So there's a leverage piece. And so I fell in love with leverage and I fell in love with marketing. And then I really just saw agent attraction kind of the same way, and kind of going back to kind of the next step, right? Once I joined, about 2 weeks after I joined, Jake Kinder, Albie Stasic, they kind of put on an event up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I don't like to fly very much, and I definitely don't like to fly in little planes. And I definitely don't like to fly in little planes in the winter. And it was in January, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing this event up here, and we're going to talk about agent attraction and stuff." And I just barely joined, and I was like, "Man," and I was already, it was just a cluster, it was just a complete mess. I was trying to, keep my team together. I was trying to roll out. I was losing money already because I was moving over. I was getting different. It was a mess. And I was like, you know what? It's not the right time. How many times have we heard that? It's never the right time. It's never the right time. So, anyways, I'm like, I don't want to pay to go up there. I don't want to go get a hotel. I don't want to be cold. I don't want to, like, all the reasons I didn't want to go. So I went. And so I go up there and I'm like, okay, cool. There's going to be 20 of us in a room. I like masterminds once you get in there, but I didn't have a great mindset. But we started going over, and they put up on the board, they had screenshots of Rob Flick's revenue share, right? Of his organization. And everyone at the time, it was like $130,000 or something like that, which is incredible, right? And he had like, I'm thinking, I don't know, it was over 1,000 people in his organization, whatever it was. But I remember he had 37 frontline people. And I just could not stop focusing on that. And I was, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've been in the business 20 years and I've got 20 people on my organization, on my team. 20 years, 20 people. And I'm thinking, to make good money at this, I'm thinking, first of all, I already thought I missed the opportunity because I missed when the company was small to where I was at. I already thought I missed it. So I was coming over for the environment, for the people, the right people. I didn't know what the stock was going to do. I didn't know if the stock was going to be worth anything. And I thought I'd already missed a big opportunity, but I figured I could interview people as I was trying to build my team. I'd get a few off, or people that were on my team that no longer wanted to be on my team that kind of would stay, but we didn't have to have the business divorce. They could still stay with EXP, but I could still be their partner in some capacity. So we go up to Jackson Hole, and I was just fascinated that Rob Flick had 37 people on his front line, and he had over 1,000 in his whole organization. And because I'm like, there's zero chance I could ever have 1,000 people. Could never envision that. But I'm like, I could get 37. And it had been 2 years. I'm like, I could get 37 in 2 years. I could get 20 and 20. I could do that. And so in my mind, that was hope. And so I hope if anybody sees this, and right now I've got like 11,100 people or something like that in my organization, right? I didn't do that. I've got 97 people frontline in 100 months. I've been with the company 100 months, and I've got 97 people, which is a little less than one. I'm good at math. A little less than one a month of active people. And I think if you really break it down, that should give anybody hope. If I was a recruiter at Remax, so I was a recruiter at Coldwell Banker, I would be fired. If I had hired one person net a month for 100 months, I would have been fired so long ago. I would be in my fourth career. And so I don't think I'm a great recruiter, but what I think I am is I'm pig-headed and disciplined, and I refuse to give up where everybody else gives up. Everybody else, and people go, "What's your secret?" I said, my secret was I came in expecting to chew glass for 5 years, that I expected to come in and suck for 5 years, and that I was going to not give up, and that I was going to stick with it for 5 years, no matter what. And I came in and I had incredible success within the first few months, and that took off, and that did it. But I think what was happening, I was ready to just chew on nails and just suffer for 5 years and not look at it and go, okay, I'll check in on 5 years and see what happened. everybody else that I've found that doesn't build a big organization comes in, talks about how great they're going to do. They come in and 3 weeks later, they've already given up. 3 weeks later, they're not even setting appointments. 3 weeks later, they're like, well, where's all my money? What's going on? And I'm like, 3 weeks? Like, you've got to prepare to suffer for 5 years, for 3 years. You want something life changing. You want stuff. You want more money than your wife could spend. You want more money than you could ever spend in lifetimes. Then it takes coming in and having a long-term play on this. And I think that's what I had is when I understood that that Rob Flick in 2 years had brought in 37 people, but that there was something in there. I'm like, okay, so it's not a recruiting game. That's what everyone thinks this is a recruiting game. This is not a recruiting game. Recruiters get paid poorly at EXP. Let me say that again. Recruiters get paid poorly at EXP. Builders, right? And you could even say empire builders get paid crazy money because when you help build and you build through people, that's where the money's at. And there's so much money, it's ridiculous. When you're a recruiter, it sucks because you're consistently looking out for your own well-being by recruiting and you're on the same hamster wheel. So get away from the recruiting. You have to be able to have something that's attractive, but when you build through people, that's where the money's at. So what happened to me is I got hope right out of the gate. Like within 2 weeks, I went to that conference and I completely changed. Going back to the question you probably asked me 15 minutes ago, what happened, right, is I had sold real estate, I'd proven I'd done it. And it wasn't that fun anymore, honestly. It was like, yeah, it's the same old stuff. But when I started seeing other people succeed through building, that was a lot of fun. So Rob Flick gave me hope. He wasn't even at the conference. It was just his numbers up there. But it gave me hope that because I could never do this, and I was committed to that. I was committed to never building 1,000 people. But I knew that I could recruit maybe one a month. I could maybe do that. And I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to take. But I'm like, I could do this if I recruited. And so my game plan was within 5 years, I wanted to build up an organization of 300 people. That was what I wanted. 300 people in 5 years. And I figured out of the 300 people, I was going to have to recruit 150 and that they maybe would recruit a little bit more. I had no idea how sticky this was and how much there was people that were hungry like I was. And, there's that 80-20 rule where you're going to have a few people inside there that are just going to go crazy and you can't stop them from building. But everyone expects you want to build an organization of 300, you're going to have to recruit 150 people. It's ridiculous. But you can build something incredible with very few people, but it's about depth. It's not about width.
Wow, there's so many like notes I was thinking of in that moment.
Good. I hope I said something good in there. I don't know. I know I kind of rambled, but hopefully there was something good in there.
You did. So I'm going to come back to a couple of points to just make sure it sticks in people's heads. So one, you said going to an event changed everything and gave you hope. And this is the one thing we try to teach people all the time is get people to events. Because at that point, they're hearing this from other people and they're seeing something that's going to light a fire that you can't necessarily always convey on your own. It's giving them a different voice, a different experience, and a different dream to look at. So it's pretty incredible that within a couple of weeks of you joining, you went to something like that and that gave you hope. The other thing that really stuck with me is people get stuck on the final number. And you said you saw it and you were like, well, I could recruit that many on my front line. People think 10,000 and they think literally this happens all the time. They're like, I can't recruit 10,000 people. I'm like, I'm not asking you to.
No, nobody can. Like, here's the thing: no, even Brett Gove couldn't do it. Like, he's the best in the world, and he couldn't do it. Like, when we have to just get out of our own head, and I think sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, and I'll let you go back. I think sometimes we get so hung up on that, almost as a defense mechanism to say, it's too big, I can't do it. And so they don't do anything instead of like just get rid of your excuses why you can't and start looking at why you can. So sorry about that.
No, I love it. I think it's even when you said you were doing one a month. Like, guys, look at what was built from one a month. And the other thing you said, which is where most people fall short, is the consistency and the treating it like it's something that you're working towards, right? If we treated agent attraction like we treat lead generation for listings, everything would shift and change. But we don't. It becomes an ancillary piece. It becomes a secondary thing that it's like, oh, well, if I get into a conversation with someone, I'll think about doing it. And that's what that can happen. But if you really looked at what you did, I mean, one a month is, guys, like super attainable.
It's
You know,
really not that impressive. When you do that, like I could
it,
make this out to be like embarrassingly bad. Like it's not that impressive. The people that came in and they're incredible. But like, let's get real. I'm not a great recruiter, and yet there's hope for everybody.
no, I loved the story. Oh, go ahead, Scott, jump in.
I gotta know, Curtis, when you're doing this, was there a certain agent that you got onboarded or a number that you got to when you're like, this is gonna work? Was there like when you got to 100 or when you got to whatever number, where you're like, oh man, this is gonna be there. You got whoever you got, where you're like, wow, this is really gonna happen.
Yeah, within about a month, I started doing this, and Dan Beer reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, I see what you're doing. Some of this stuff." He's like, "I've seen EXP. I'm not interested in that at all. But you're a smart guy, and I'm about to buy some KW franchises, and this doesn't make any sense to me. So explain what is your rationale?" And so I said, well, don't sign those documents real quick. First of all, I said, let me go through and explain kind of like the same vision I just told you is about how about if we all come together and we build something together versus all independent going back and we're rebuilding all those things. And I went through and explained this and I painted this picture of this future, right? In my mind, that's what I saw. And he got it. He's just like, holy crap, I get this. He's like, is this really what this is? So it wasn't like I was sitting there breaking down all these problems. I painted this picture, this vision of what it could be. He saw it and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, and he was like, all I want is I want 4 offices of 50 people in 4 areas in San Diego. That's all I ever want. And I go, dude, you're thinking so small. I go, think, and I was like, expanded it out, and he was just like, and he got it. Like, I did a good job with it, but let's just get real. Like, I painted it, but he got it.
Got it.
And when he got it, he was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be. He goes, what should I do? And I said, well, we need to get all the biggest and best people. If we get the biggest and best people, this industry is an industry of followers. Other people will follow us. And so he got it, and he's like, well, then I'm going to reach out to Kyle Whistle and see what's going on. And so he reached out to Kyle Whistle, and then Kyle got it. Kyle's like, oh my gosh, this is the platform. So they came within a month and a half, right? And so we got up to like 100 because they had pretty big teams. And so we got to like 100 like in that first month and a half, two, whatever. I hit 100 and I was like, what in the world? But I got to tell you, 100, but it was so fun. And I'd wake up, I could hardly sleep because the money was like, whatever. I think I made 100 or $300 the first month or whatever. But you know what? The whole time I was with KW, I averaged like less than $20 a month the whole time I was there, and I was a part owner, whatever else. And so to me, it was like, oh my gosh! In the first month, I made 300. The whole years I was with KW, I made $500. To me, I was like, oh my gosh! But I was having so much fun because when you see the light bulb go on for someone, and so to answer your question, once I hit about 100, 115, 120 people, it was just like, oh my gosh, I had to recalibrate my thought process. And I had to go from thinking 300 was this magical fantasy number to all of a sudden I was like, is 1,000 even possible? And then I was like, okay, I can, well, maybe I'm just going to grind at this and I'll get to 1,000 one day. And what happens is when you're not as concerned about the last one, but you're concerned about, hey, how is Dan doing? How is Kyle doing? If you're helping them win, and you literally that is the most important thing and that's fun for you and you're having a good time and you're encouraging and you're just the rest of the numbers just kind of happen and then it just got out of control. I just be honest with you, like I did a good job but then it just gets out of control and then you look way better than what you should, for a while. When you're doing this at the beginning, people are like, why would I do this when I can make a couple $100 when I could go make $10,000 selling a house? Which is exactly true because for the first while, you're completely underpaid for what you're doing. And then what happens is it crosses this line, and then you're ridiculously overpaid for what you did.
It's pretty fascinating that you can like see that moment in time. Like it was like 100, 110, and then all of a sudden it was like you're off to the races.
Yeah.
So in the midst of all of that, is there anything like is there like a moment where you felt like you hit a wall, or was there a moment where you were like, let me switch gears and stop selling as much real estate and switch over to this? Were there moments like that in the midst of all of this?
Right about that same time, within that
Okay.
first month, whatever, I just went to one of my leaders in my team, and I was like, "Here's the deal. This is the biggest opportunity in the history of the world, in my opinion, and I'm going to put my energy and effort into that. And I hope that this succeeds and keeps going. But my effort's going to go there, and so you can run this, and it would be great if you didn't run it into the ground. But the thing is, this is the biggest opportunity, and it would be disingenuous for me to spend, and I think it would be hypocritical for me to spend all my time building my team and telling the world that this is the biggest opportunity, when if it's the biggest opportunity, then I should be spending my time, energy, and money over building this. And when you do that, you teach yourself that this is the biggest opportunity, right? And something popped up. If I can share one other thing, I know I've been rambling a lot, but hopefully there's something good in there. But if I can go back to one other thing, you say, what was, a time or whatever. So I joined in January. Really, I signed up in January. I really didn't do anything until February. Dan and Kyle, they started moving over like in March. And then in April, Brent Goves are the best. And he's like, dude, come to Vegas. We're doing this thing in Vegas. I'd been with the company like 2.5 months or whatever. He said, we're doing this event in Vegas. And I was like, dude, I just can't. I'm like, I'm running around crazy trying to do I can't go. I'm going back and forth to San Diego. I'm doing all this other stuff. And he's like, dude, you're speaking. And I was like, what are you talking about? And like, you get there and there's 50 people in the room and 45 of them are speaking. And you're like, dude, he's so good, right? But like there's a message in there too, right? So anyway, so I go to Vegas and we do this thing. Actually, you know what? There was two Vegas things. That was Vegas, and then like 2 weeks later there was another. There was like an EXP. It was shareholder summit or something like that,
Oh, shareholder.
right? So show up to that. And then Gene and Rob and Brent, they had a little thing up in their room like they always do, different stuff like this. But this was like 2.5, 3 months in, and he's like, only people that have 100 or more people get to go. And I had 140 people or something like that. And so I'm walking around feeling like I'm a rock star. I'm like, I'm going to the suite. I'm going to the suite. I'm like feeling like, yeah, I'm golden, right? And so he tells me where it is and stuff. And Kyle Whistle was with me, and he had maybe 85 or whatever. He's like, dude, I'm crashing this. I don't care. I'm going in anyways. And I was like, well, whatever. And so now he's got 5,000 people, right? But he's like, dude, I should have 100 by now. And he'd been with like a month, whatever. So anyway, we get in the room and there's maybe 25 of us or something like that. And they're doing a champagne toast. They're doing all this stuff. But he said something. He goes, like they always do. The room's never going to be this small again or whatever else. But he said, here's the deal. The next time we do this, to get in the room, you've got to have at least 250 people or you're not going to be in. And I was like, the F I'm not getting in that room.
Challenge accepted, right?
I was like, I don't know who I got to kill to get in that room, but I'm going to be in that room. And I decided I would never not be in that room. I made the decision. I said, I will never not be invited into the room. And so what happens is when you declare that stuff to yourself, you change who you spend time with, who you want to be, and what your minimum standards are. And I think a lot of people join and then their minimum standards just become too low and they become comfortable not being invited into the room. And I refused to be that. And I was like, I didn't know what the rules were, but I was like, well, if I've got to have 250 people to get in the room, then I got to go find 250 people. Then that's what I got to do, because I'm like, I saw myself as the person that was in that room. And so I think when we change our identity and we become the person that has to be in that room, then we do the activities that get us in that room. Too many of us see ourselves as the person that sells 20 houses a year, and we do all the activities that sell 20 houses a year. What if you just changed your belief and you saw yourself as the person that's up on stage? You're in the room with people that have 1,000 people, and that becomes your peer group. When your peer group is people that sell 8 houses a year, you're going to sell 8 or 10 houses a year. So you got to change your peer group. And that was one of the things that really just stuck with me, is I was like, my peer group is Gene and Rob and Glenn and Brent and everybody that's just building these massive organizations. That's who I want to spend time with. That's who I was listening to. And that's who I want to feel comfortable with. So find people, you've got some big players on this call. You got, obviously Casey, change who you spend time with and make some ascension things in your head that you see yourself different.
I love what you shared because I think it's difficult, and we see this with realtors. I've been a coach for a long time who exactly what you said. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to sell one house a month," and that's not bad. That's not a bad number. It's way more than the average realtor in the United States sells per year, but they are not putting themselves in a situation or surrounding themselves with people who are at that next level, right? We start to get really comfortable where we are, and you made yourself uncomfortable. You were like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go in this room and I'm going to become that, and I'm going to make sure I'm in the next room. And it probably felt uncomfortable in the moment, but you were like, I don't care what happens, I'm going to do it. Like the next
Yeah.
time there's one like this, it's going to end up there. And anything is possible if you tell yourself that it is. Right?
Yeah.
If you tell yourself that it is. So,
Yeah.
something we haven't touched on yet that I do want to touch on because I do think it's really important when we talk about agent attraction, we are often always talking about bringing people in. I feel very passionately about retention.
Hmm.
If we can close the back door, we don't have to keep bringing in so many people in the front door. Is
Yeah.
there something that you've done or that you've created within your own organization that you feel really helps with retention?
That is that's the real estate problem. I mean, in general, right? And for a long time, it was about trying to build relationships with people as best you can, and you'd still lose people or whatever. And I think we do as good a job as any, but it is one of those things that, especially as you get to start building an organization, the only thing I can really encourage people to do is, when it is an honor when someone names you as a sponsor and do everything you can to try to connect with them and help support them. And the way that this company is built is you take care of your people that you directly bring in, or the people that are first tier, second tier, third tier. After that, it becomes more difficult, right? And you try and help where you try and help the people that are coming towards you. But the way that this builds and retains, if you will, is taking care of the people on your first tier and teaching them to go do that down the way. That's really the only way I can see. And I've got a little bit better retention than most people, but it's still horrible. I mean, it's still horrible in this industry, just as a general rule, and especially as the market's tough. There's a lot of people that get into real estate that shouldn't be in real estate. And then there's a lot of people that get in that think they're gonna, because they got their real estate license, that people are magically just gonna sign up under them. They're gonna make all this revenue share. So you can't change what's ever in people's minds with it. But it is about duplication. This isn't about recruiting. This isn't about doing it. Everything I say, if it doesn't duplicate, just don't do it with that. So, and with that, and I got to jump off here in about 4 or 5 minutes or something like that. And I'll try to keep my answers a little bit shorter. But if there's any questions or anything you want to try and do, sorry about blabbing so much.
Oh, no, no, no. I love it. Guys, I'm going to give you guys this opportunity then for questions since we've got about 5 minutes left with Curtis. Anything specific that you guys want to ask or talk about or pick his brain?
I want to know what your next goal is. You're at
Oh,
11,000. Like what numbers on your dream board?
And I don't, like, honestly, Scott, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a terrible answer. I mean, it's so far, it's so far exceeded what I could possibly do. Um, to me, it's about trying to see, okay, in my office, you've been in my office on one big wall. I've got people that are over 1,000 people in my organization. I think I've got 10 or 11 people on that. And I want to have 25 people that have 1,000 or more.
okay.
And then, over that, I want to have, like, 250 people that have over 100 people. So to me, it's more about finding people and finding a way to latch onto their goals and dreams. And yeah, that will play into mine. But, like, honestly, 10,000, 11,000 is just such a crazy number. Like, I mean, I could say 20,000 just to kind of be up there with Brent or whatever. But, like, I don't know. I don't think it's really going to change my life that much. But I know that getting someone from 50 people to 250 is going to change their life. I know getting someone from 250 to 500 is going to change their life. So to me, it's more about, I need to do a better job of just hearing the stories of the people coming up and building And honestly, we need some of the newer people that have joined the company to come in, and we need some rabbits to, some greyhounds to chase that inspires everybody to be able to do that. So I need to probably do a better job of reconnecting with some of the stories, and maybe at that point, maybe it'll do something. But right now, I feel so ridiculously blessed, and I've exceeded, I've exceeded because of everybody in my organization. But I need to do a better job of probably reconnecting with some of them. But
I
good
love that
question.
I love that you shared that story, Curtis, because oh goodness, I don't even remember when I joined now, but when Rick first came to me about EXP and I was with Keller Williams and I was like, let me do my research. And for anybody that knows me, I research everything. But your video was one I saw when I decided to start building an organization of my own. And it was,
Awesome.
I saw you with the frames on the
Yeah.
wall and I was like, oh, I like this strategy. I'm going to
Yeah.
find people who all want 1,000 people. I have six of them.
Yeah.
I have six of those people. Like I actually
Yeah.
went out and actively looked for people who wanted to build that. And that's where I spend my time, right? Is
Yeah.
helping them build and create. And I was like, I love the way Curtis's brain works because it
Yeah.
wasn't how do I go find 10,000 people? It was how do I find people who want to build, help them build.
I think I stumbled into that because I was like, I can't do this. And when you kind of give up control and you realize that you can't, nobody in here can recruit 1,000 people. You just can't do it. But what you could do is help other people get to 300, 500, stuff like that. And so, I had people reach out all the time. They're like, hey, I made a wall like this too. It's not as flashy, and I'm going to help these people get to 10 and these people get to 50. And I'm like, that is amazing. That is exactly what we want. And like, you're not stealing from me. Like we all want achievement, we all want to be recognized, we all want, like, if we create a ladder we want to climb it. Like that's what this is all about, right? So figure out whatever in your organization, and there's no rule that says, okay, you start with this and you can't change it. Like of course you can, like, inspire people. But if you give them you make a list, we want to be on it. You make a list, you want to be at the top of it. That's just how we're wired, and that's who you really want.
I love that. So I know we're out of time. I want everyone here to recognize that his first goal was 300. like that should tell you something about what's possible here. And when you tell yourself that it's possible, right? And it's such an incredible story, Curtis. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today on what this journey has looked like for you and what's possible for everyone on this call and what's possible for anyone in your org, right? Like anybody in your sphere that you've ever had a relationship with, and you tell that same story that Curtis heard and didn't really believe initially, and eventually started to believe it, and then now has shared that story with other people and what he's created, and the kind of legacy that's, I'm sure, in place for you, for your family, and for the people in your organization. So super appreciative. Thank you for taking the time. As everyone
Thank
knows,
you.
we record these. It'll be up on our YouTube channel later today if you want to rewatch it and get inspired. I was super inspired. And again, thanks so much, Curtis. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Go and create what you want for yourself as well. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much. Go change some lives. Thanks.
Bye, guys.